The federal trial of the city state's attorney has been delayed.
If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bull.
How the issue of witness testimony forced the judge's hand. Baltimore City schools facing a crisis of violence. Why some say their disciplinary tactics don't go far enough in promoting school safety. DPW withholds bottled water from residents skeptical of what's coming out of the tap. Why private security was keeping it away from neighbors who say they need it.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
The federal trial of City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has been delayed.
Well, we are following two big stories involving Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, a showdown today in court over her federal trial on the eve of jury selection. Federal prosecutors pushing to delay the trial.
And Mosby's office moving today to vacate the murder conviction of Adnan Syed. Her office says prosecutors have new evidence and are pushing for a new trial. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Team coverage tonight of our two big stories. Jeff Abel standing by live with what's next in the high-profile trial of Adnan Syed.
But first, Mackenzie Frost has the latest in the federal trial of Marilyn Mosby.
For the second time, Marilyn Mosby's fraud and perjury trial is getting delayed. This time, it's because the defense failed to disclose expert witnesses on time, and prosecutors say they want time to hire their own. The delay comes as Mosby is winding down her time in office, and that is weighing heavy on the defense. Walking into court Wednesday, City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby staying quiet as 4 federal charges loom over her. Hours before jury selection was scheduled to begin, federal judge Lydia Grigsby agreeing to delay the trial because federal prosecutors say Mosby's defense team waited too long to disclose expert witnesses, a point Mosby's attorney, Scott Bolden, denies. After the ruling, Bolden outspoken and upset on the steps of the courthouse.
And now on the eve of trial, if not further persecution of Marilyn Mosby as a public official, they throw gasoline on an already troublesome prosecution.
Bolden's expert witness centers around Mosby's travel-related business they claim was negatively impacted by the pandemic, which they say qualified her to withdraw $81,000 from her retirement account without penalty.
I've talked about the business before, and the government has amnesia about it now. If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bull.
The same business Mosby and her own spokesperson, Zy Richardson, said in 2020 were not operational. Richardson said publicly, quote, "There are no clients, and Mosby has not received a single cent in revenue. There are no plans to operate the company while she is state's attorney."
This was making the best out of a bad situation.
Baltimore area attorney Adam Ruther, who isn't involved in this case, says Judge Grigsby was left with few options.
That's not a fair way to conduct a trial for the government, which is entitled to a certain amount of notice.
We vehemently opposed it. We're ready to go.
And now the calendar gets closer to when Mosby will be out of office.
My client's been under investigation by the United States government for over 200 days. She's got a family. She's lost an election. She needs income after January 6th, as you all well know.
And the question remains. Mr. Bolden, what's next? When would you like to see this case move to trial since it's not starting on Monday?
Tomorrow.
Well, that's probably not going to happen. So what's your next option?
Well, we'll be in court tomorrow to try to figure that out.
When City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby will face a jury has yet to be decided. So, jury selection will not be taking place Thursday. Instead, both sides will be back in court for a hearing scheduled for 2 o'clock in the afternoon to figure out when this trial will begin. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. And these are the charges that Mosby is facing. Count 1 for perjury. Federal prosecutors say Mosby lied when she took out $36,000 from her City of Baltimore employee retirement account, claiming it was due to financial hardship because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As you can see, investigators say she checked this box indicating one of those possibilities. Count 2, a false statement on a loan application. Prosecutors allege Mosby signed an application for a $493,000 $150,000 mortgage on a Florida home, failing, though, to disclose she owed significant amounts of federal taxes. Now, count 3, perjury for another COVID hardship withdrawal. This time, prosecutors say she checked the box again right here, receiving $45,000 from her retirement account. The indictment claims Mosby made more money, though, in 2020 than she did in 2019. And then count 4, a false statement on a loan application. That's for another Florida home, this one in Longboat Key. Feds say Mosby again failed to disclose the tax lien. I'm Mackenzie Frost. Will be back in court tomorrow. She'll have the latest developments live on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
The other big story from the city state's attorney's office: more than 20 years after Adnan Syed was convicted of murder, the very office that prosecuted him wants that thrown out. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has more on these new developments and why this is happening right now. Jeff?
Well, the state's attorney says she began taking a fresh look at this case more than a year ago, and tonight she's asking the court to throw out the conviction and set Adnan Syed free. 22 years after a jury found Adnan Syed guilty of strangling his girlfriend to death, prosecutors are now questioning the evidence that put him away for life.
The fact that they have been able to uncover 2 potential suspects, the fact that technology has aged so much that we now know that some of the cell phone data may have been unreliable, that the state relied heavily upon at trial, this is a stark contrast from the confidence that the state had in the case initially.
In a motion filed in circuit court today, the state's attorney's office asked a judge to vacate Syed's conviction, saying they've identified 2 unnamed suspects and questioned the validity of phone records used to convict Syed. They also say advanced DNA tests performed this year haven't pointed to Syed either. According to state's attorney Marilyn Mosby, the state lacks confidence in the integrity of the conviction and requests Mr. Syed be afforded a new trial.
When you have talented lawyers and a group of people digging into evidence, you're always going to uncover something. The question is whether you're going to uncover something, as in this case, that's so significant that it could warrant a new trial.
The case earned national attention when it was chronicled on the hit podcast Serial, but questions raised about the case weren't enough to gain Syed a new trial. 4 years ago, Maryland's highest court refused to grant a new trial for Syed. A year later, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected his bid, too.
Every single court that's seen his case has rejected his appeals.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute questions the timing of the motion. It was filed just hours before a jury was set to be selected in state's attorney Marilyn Mosby's federal perjury trial.
She's had 8 years to review this case, and now she finds compelling evidence after she's been booted from office and after the federal court is going forward with her trial. It's not a coincidence that Marilyn Mosby is doing something that's in her best interest.
Well, the state's attorney says she is not convinced that Syed is innocent. She just thinks he deserves a new trial after uncovering this new evidence. We are live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
We are following some breaking news. Police responding to a deadly double shooting in West Baltimore. This is in the Harlem Park neighborhood. Police responded to shots fired at around 7:30 near Harlem Park Elementary School. One man already dead when first responders arrived. Another man was badly wounded. He's listed in serious condition. This death marks the 248th murder of the year in Baltimore City. Now, Baltimore police have also released some pictures of a person they say is responsible for a homicide last month in Canton. The pictures are hard to see, but police say they believe the person there assaulted a 60-year-old man on August 20th. He was seen fleeing in a 2005 gold Buick Regal. The man assaulted died at the hospital. Police say call them if you recognize that person. Well, who knew, what, and when? Tomorrow, Baltimore City Council will be holding a hearing into last week's E. coli contamination.
In that hearing, we'll dig into the bottom of how city leaders and DPW responded to the water crisis.
Right now, there are residents who say they still don't trust the water coming out of their tap.
Keith Daniels is live right now. And Keith, you continue to spend time in West Baltimore, and you're hearing from residents. What are they saying?
Well, Kyle, the level of concern runs deep for some residents, especially for one woman who's been very outspoken. And tonight, what we're doing to try to help settle one of her main concerns.
In this Harlem Park neighborhood, no more visible signs of the E. coli contaminated water scare that mainly hit West Baltimore and parts of Baltimore County last week. The stacked pallets of bottled water removed late this afternoon, but just a few hours before,
they got the water just sitting there. Why the people can't get water?
Outrage from some residents, still concerned about the safety of their water at home, who asked to be given some of that water.
Are they giving out the waters?
But residents were refused. The bottled water left untouched, guarded by a private security company for the Department of Public Works.
There's a whole bunch of water out here. Cases and so I don't know.
The untouched water stored now for other emergencies, and the declaration of Denise Knight.
I'm not drinking the water yet.
Part of the residents' concerns and skepticism after the water contamination scare. Knight even telling us that one thing that could possibly convince her that her drinking water is now safe.
I would like for the mayor to drink this water. And if he like, he can come over and have a glass of water with me.
The mayor's office responded, a spokeswoman saying in part, Mayor Scott will not engage in any stunts or theatrics. But for Knight...
So if you do have anxiety, a couple things you can do is, one, test the water for yourself.
Peace of mind could be one step closer. Fox 45 News reached out to several Maryland Department of Environment approved water testing laboratories to test Knight's water. Atlantic Blue Water Services, one of the companies selected to do the job. Ned Van Allen, an EPA certified water sampler and certified water specialist, details how the sample will be taken.
So we'll go in, turn on the faucet, right? I'm going to test for chlorine to see if we have chlorine running through the house, right? Because I always start there. Then we'll take the sample bottle. I'll put gloves on. We'll grab the sample. I'll seal it, put it on ice, and take it directly to the lab.
Well, those specialists will be taking those samples from Knight's home tomorrow. We'll be there for that. And, of course, for the results, we'll follow up with that as well. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, Baltimore's crime crisis plays out in city schools. Coming up, Project Baltimore investigates a shift in policy when it comes to student discipline and a spike in violence. A vacant home in Park Heights listed as sold for more than $750,000. But that wasn't the actual price. We found out why it's listed that way and the impact it's having.
After a gorgeous Wednesday, a gorgeous Thursday also on the way. I'm going to let you know when rain could impede your forecast, though. It's in my Weather Authority forecast.
And Maryland's late Congressman Elijah Cummings honored one more time on Capitol Hill. The emotional ceremony coming up.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Baltimore is on pace to see its 8th straight year with more than 300 murders, and that makes our city one of the deadliest in America.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, it's become clear that schools aren't immune to violence, and some even say they're making it worse.
Project Baltimore has heard from teachers.
Have you ever been attacked by a student?
Numerous times. Many times.
Students.
A girl just hit me, and you were right there. I came to you to avoid the situation.
And parents.
She has been physically harmed at school. She got slapped across the face once. She got a death threat twice.
Each one concerned about the level of violence in Baltimore City schools.
Do you think schools have become less safe over the past 10 years?
Yes. Yes.
We even spoke with 2 city school police officers who in January asked to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation, but they wanted their message heard.
If there's no discipline, the child's going to do it over and over again because they haven't learned anything.
We have a victim who is a student here at Merville High School.
On September 2nd, 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon was shot and killed outside of Mergenthaler High School. Police say Brogdon got into a confrontation with a student from another school who pulled a gun. When these 2 officers spoke with us in January, they tried to blow the whistle, saying the violence on school property is getting worse, even if the data doesn't show it.
And disappointing because you're only making a statement to appease the people when you're not taking care of the problem.
From 2008 to 2018, the number of students arrested in city schools plummeted by 98%. In 2008, 971 students were arrested. 10 years later, it was just 18. These whistleblowers say arrests are down, not because schools are safer, but because school police have been told not to arrest students, even for more serious crimes like burglary and assault.
City schools is trying to keep arrest numbers down.
That's correct.
Why?
Politics, sir. To me, that's fruitful.
In 2017, Fox 45 asked City Schools Chief of Police, Akil Ham, about the decrease in arrests. At the time, he told us his officers could be more effective in stopping crimes if they build relationships with students instead of arresting them for lower-level offenses.
We're not going to arrest all of the children. We're going to build positive relationships with kids. We're going to nurture kids.
But it's not just arrests that are significantly down. We can see a similar drop in suspensions. In 2007, more than 17,000 city school students were suspended for a variety of reasons, from fights to bringing a weapon to school. By 2020, that number was down to just about 4,500.
You're not teaching people or kids that it's not okay to burglarize, it's not okay to have a fight.
City schools will not do a current interview to discuss school violence. In January, we were told the district has implemented an intentional multifaceted strategy that has resulted in fewer student arrests and been held up as a national model. Months after issuing that statement, news broke that city schools confiscated 15 guns during the school year, the most ever, according to the police union. Then, to begin this school year, Brogdon was killed after dismissal, walking out of school. The boy who killed him, according to police, had a prior offense, but as a minor, the details have not been released.
I think that is ludicrous, and it's sad. They should be arrested and processed.
These officers say students who don't face consequences now will be more likely to commit serious crimes in the future, furthering the city's epidemic of violence.
There's always one bad apple. And if you don't correct that apple, it's going to continue to spiral in a negative way.
I'm Chris Papps, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, take a look at this. Our viewer, Melody, sent us this beautiful picture of a hummingbird. This is from Freeland in Baltimore County.
It's an incredible picture as that hummingbird approaches that feeder. Hummingbirds like sweet liquids. I think we have a feeder out for them. And I told my daughter, if you're out in our garden and you see something that looks like a giant bug, it's probably not a bug. I passed one like a week ago. It's a hummingbird. They're tiny and incredibly fast.
Yeah, well, because I feel like their wings flap like a
They do,
insect.
like about 1,000,000 times a moment.
Exactly. So so Melody, thank you for saying
Thank
that.
you, Melody.
She has a good camera.
That's
it's hard to
very
capture.
cool. Yes.
Yeah, and actually, I saw one of those come past my window, my kitchen window. I mean, I looked and I was like, was that like a cicada or something?
It looked like they could be a cicada.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's not. That was last year. That's not this year. All right, let's get right into the forecast, and we've got temperatures at 66 at BWI, Aberdeen. You're at 68, 70 degrees, Annapolis, Easton at 66, and 70 at Westminster with some mainly clear skies. Boy, is it a beautiful evening. HD radar, nice and quiet. Some showers. That's actually with a cold front that came through around here several days ago, south and east of the Carolina coast. That's where they stay. Look at that bus stop forecast. A winter drop-off time, maybe even a sweater or a light jacket. 64, 50s in the outlying areas, about 75 to 80 tomorrow afternoon. A touch of fall in the forecast. Oh, but we're going to be warming up again. I'm going to let you know when and how much in my Weather Authority forecast.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up, remembering the late Congressman Elijah Cummings, the big dedication in Washington, and special meeting behind where his portrait was unveiled.
It was a random act of violence that someone came and just started shooting in a crowd.
The family of a Milford Mill student killed last week is now speaking out how they want their young son to be remembered.
A final journey for Queen Elizabeth II. You are looking at the moment she left Buckingham Palace for the final time this morning. Mourners coming from near and far as the carriage made its way to Westminster Hall. Hundreds of thousands of mourners are expected to file past the late Queen's coffin over the next 4 days as she lies in state. Some lining up earlier this week, waiting more than 24 hours for their chance to pay respects to the Queen one final time.
I haven't had any sleep whatsoever. Happy to be able to show my last respects to the Queen.
I thought this is, this is priceless, an experience of a lifetime. I would not miss this for the world.
The Queen will be buried on Monday. President Biden and the First Lady will be in attendance. The official portrait of the late Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings has been unveiled on Capitol Hill.
Fellow lawmakers gathered for the ceremony at the Capitol complex. The painting is in the House Committee on Oversight and Reform's hearing room that Cummings chaired. Cummings represented the Baltimore area for more than 20 years. He died in 2019 at the age of 68. He was a civil rights advocate known for reaching across the aisle to get things done.
He was so astute, so smart, so wise, so strategic, and the rest. And that's why he made such a big difference. He was a leader of towering integrity. Everybody knows that. A man whose life embodied the American dream.
I am so proud of my husband. I am so proud of everything that he became. But I am especially proud of the fact that he put country above party. He put country above everything.
Well, Cummings was the first black lawmaker to lie in state at the U.S. Capitol. A plan to ease overcrowding in Howard County schools is receiving backlash. What parents and students said this evening to school leaders.
I'm Christine Frizzell in Washington, where some are calling on Congress to do more to change the way racism and gender identity are taught at schools on U.S. military bases. The findings of a new report coming up.
A Milford Mill student killed last week after a football game. Fox 45 News speaks with the family.
It was a random act of violence that someone came and just started shooting in a crowd. To be honest, words can't sum up the way that I feel about this situation.
About a week after his passing, the family of Travis Slaughter says they're ready to make their voices heard.
Travis is the 14-year-old Milford Mill student who was shot and killed at the end of a high school football game.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor spoke with loved ones this evening and has more on the messages and memories they once shared.
Yeah, I spoke with a close family friend today. They want people to know that Travis was an exceptional student, friend, and family member. But more than anything, what they really want is answers.
So unfortunate because he had his whole life ahead of him.
A life tragically cut short at just 14 years old.
We are not supposed to bury our children.
Close family friend Natasha Marable describing Travis Slaughter as a bright light taken far too soon.
He was always very fun, loving and outgoing, just a wonderful spirit to be around.
Less than 2 weeks into the school year at Milford Mill Academy,
he was so excited about going to high school.
Travis gunned down at the end of a high school football game.
It's very disheartening. To be honest, words can't sum up the way that I feel about this situation.
Natasha saying not only has she lost a loved one,
the pain is very real.
But it hurts worse knowing the entire community has been left without answers.
It is an ongoing investigation, but from what we are hearing from detectives, it was a random act of violence that someone came and just started shooting in a crowd.
Not wanting Travis's memory to fade, the family is now pushing to rename the intersection where he lost his life Travis Way, hoping it will serve as both a memorial.
I think that would be a great way to remember him by, a great way for all of the people that love him to remember him.
As well as a warning and call to action.
We can look at that and say, we don't want another Travis Way. Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done immediately.
And this right here is the exact intersection they're hoping to get renamed. It's currently Washington Avenue and Liberty Road. Again, this is still a very active and ongoing investigation, and anyone with any information in Travis's case is asked to call Baltimore County Police. Reporting in Baltimore County, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, the clock is ticking tonight for what could be the first national railroad strike in 30 years. About 60,000 railroad workers are set to walk off the job after midnight on Friday if their union reps can't come to an agreement on a new contract with rail companies. Some unions have tentative deals, but not all of them, and one was even rejected. The strike would shut down service on everything from grains and soy to hazardous materials. Some deliveries already canceled. About 30% of America's freight moves by rail, so we could see price hikes and supply chains breaking. That strike could cancel all Mark, Camden, and Brunswick line service starting Friday morning because they use the freight rail tracks. If CSX workers strike, Mark, along with other regional rail carriers across the nation, would have to halt service. Now, we should note the Penn line will not be affected. Amtrak owns that line. Fox 45 News has compiled a list of alternative commuter options on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
It's a typical 3-bedroom Baltimore row home in a Park Heights community under development. But why do online listings say it was sold for more than $700,000? Well, that's raising suspicions of at least one community leader who's now demanding answers. Riel Creighton has that story.
The neighborhood, the 3000 block of Garrison Avenue in Central Park Heights.
These houses sold for about $140,000 to $160,000.
And one house stands out.
I was outraged.
Will Hanna says not for what it looks like, but for what it was sold for.
$785,000.
This property worth $785,000.
I said, well, this must be a mansion in the middle of Park Heights.
Hanna leads Park Heights community-based development, part of their mission to ensure affordable housing remains in the area. But it was this listing that blew them away.
You're pricing the properties outside of what this community can actually afford. The average median income in this neighborhood is $29,000. per household.
Hannah doesn't believe the property was actually sold for $750,000, but to be allowed to be recorded as such, he says, points to a failure in the city system. It wouldn't require some proof for what this house was appraised for.
They're saying they can get more for the property now, and they're charging more for rents. They're charging more for sale of property.
He says about more than just overpriced real estate.
Why would the city say that it bought property for $500,000?
That was Hannah in June, raising similar questions about other Park Heights properties, vacant, near falling down city-owned houses listed online as purchased for over $500,000. The city later told us that was the price for several acquired liens on foreclosed homes that had been bundled. This the price for 19 different homes.
Whether it was intentional, whether it was a mistake, whether it was recorded wrong, what it did is it set precedents. It hurts people.
Well, Hannah suspects there could be some effort to raise the value of homes in the area, a subtle move, he believes, towards gentrification. That is hard to prove, but we did reach out to the city to ask if they could provide an explanation about the house. We're still waiting to hear back. In Baltimore tonight, Riel Creighton, Fox 45 News.
A split decision tonight in the child pornography and sex abuse trial of R. Kelly. A federal grand jury in Chicago convicted the singer on charges of producing child pornography and enticing girls for sex. Prosecutors won convictions on 6 of the 13 counts against him, but the jury acquitted him on 2 and 2 associates of rigging his 2008 trial on similar charges. The singer is already sentenced to 3 decades in prison for racketeering and sex trafficking and now faces additional time behind bars. There are 2 more trials pending, one in Minnesota and another in Chicago, but in Illinois State Court. Maryland Comptroller Peter Franchot says the state has a $2 billion surplus for the 2022 fiscal year. He says nearly $900 million will go into state savings funds. Franchot says lawmakers would also transfer more than $1.2 billion in unassigned funds to the state's rainy day fund. Governor Larry Hogan responded to that news, saying he's proud of how the state has recovered from a $5 billion deficit when he took office.
For 15 years, Democratic Congressman John Sarbanes has represented Maryland's 3rd congressional district. In November, he will be facing Republican candidate Eurypsie Morgan. Today, she held a press conference calling for a debate.
We have politicians whose job it is to convince us, to convince the women behind me, to convince you out there listening that they deserve your vote. When they feel so entitled that they don't even want to communicate with the opposing party, that's not democracy.
Well, Fox 45 News reached out to Congressman Sarbanes. We have yet to hear back.
Howard County parents and students took part in a second public hearing tonight about the superintendent's redistricting plan. Most are against it.
Having a student start at the freshman year at high school and then switch to another high school can be extremely stressful for them.
Sending us 8 to 9 miles down Route 1 as an island takes your ask too far this time.
She deserves to have a safe travel to and from her school. Traffic on Route 1 is like beach traffic on Route 50 on Labor Day.
The school system is building a new high school in Jessup to help ease overcrowding. Speakers raised concerns from switching schools to travel distance and dangerous amounts of traffic. About 2,500 high school students may have to change schools under the plan if it's approved. The board will meet in a week to discuss that plan and the input they've received.
Well, in Anne Arundel County, school leaders are considering a proposal to use virtual learning days in place of snow days this year. A new state law rule allows school systems to repurpose up to 8 school days into virtual learning days each and every year. Parents are worried about losing snow days, so are kids, but the superintendent says he doesn't want the school year to stretch too far into the summer. Parents and students have until this Sunday to weigh in. The school board will vote on the proposal next Wednesday.
The debate over what's taught in America's classrooms is spilling into U.S. military bases.
National correspondent Christine Frizzau digs into the debate as part of our series Crisis in the Classroom.
I am disgusted.
Eruptions at school board meetings have sparked new debates about how subjects like diversity, racism, and gender identity are taught in America's schools. Now a focus for some on taxpayer-funded schools on U.S. military bases.
They have a captive audience in school children on military bases. They don't have other options for educating their children.
Ryan Williams, president of the conservative Claremont Institute, points to videos like this his organization obtained from the government.
Kids as young as 4 years old are already starting to develop a stable understanding of their gender identity.
Findings are outlined in a new report called Grooming Future Revolutionaries. Concerns include, quote, peddling critical race theory, white shaming, queer theory, and left-wing activism to children in its K-12 military schools through teaching methods.
It's to encourage children to share with their teachers their preferred pronouns or maybe any secrets they have about their sexual orientation that they might not share at home.
According to the Department of Defense, about 43% of active duty members of the military are people of color.
A large percentage of people who serve in the U.S. military are black and brown and probably want their children to learn about systemic racism, which is, the history of why, there is still such a huge socioeconomic divide between, minorities and majorities.
We reject at the Claremont Institute the premise that all disparities are due to systemic racism.
Still, some of the highest ranking members of the military have shared different views on the matter.
I want to understand white rage, and I'm white. What is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend?
Still, the Claremont Institute and some lawmakers are calling on Congress to provide more oversight over what is and is not taught at schools on U.S. bases, and even to threaten to withhold funding if changes aren't made. On Capitol Hill, I'm Christine Frizzell.
Well, Baltimore is getting ready to crack down on street racers. After the break, a look at the issue around the country and the city that says it has found a solution. And new tonight on the Late Edition, first responders hope that a distress call for a major disaster never comes, how they're staying prepared in case hospitals see an unexpected surge.
And after a real beauty today, another real beauty for tomorrow. Get out there, play a little bit of tennis on the courts outside. Temperature starting in the 60s at 8 a.m., working into the mid to upper 70s. Almost a touch of fall. We got some mid to upper 80s back in the forecast. I'm going to let you know if they get here in time for your weekend plans. My Weather Authority forecast.
Well, across the country, more and more street races are taking place on our public roads every day. This epidemic of speed is not only illegal, it is highly dangerous. Well, in this Spotlight on America, national investigative correspondent Chris Daniels introduces us to a mother who knows these dangers all too well. We also visit a city that believes it has found a model for reducing the need for speed.
Across the country, it's become an activity on the rise. Taking over streets, blocking intersections, spinning donuts, and racing down roads and interstates. It's known as street racing, and it's often captured on videos that go viral. It took root during the pandemic when roads normally clogged with commuters suddenly emptied, opening the door to a surge in chaos on our streets with sometimes deadly consequences.
What did I do wrong as a mom? Was I too strict?
Ask Lily Trujillo about street racing and a December night in Los Angeles she will not forget.
I dropped her off. I saw her standing by the door. I got teary-eyed for no reason when I saw her. But little did I know that was the last time I was going to ever see her alive.
Lily's daughter, Valentina, was a passenger in a friend's car when the driver was challenged to a race.
He took off, going over 80 miles an hour, crashed against an SUV. If he didn't race, she'll be alive walking this earth with me. And that's when I said, a street racing, it's what killed her.
Today, many more communities are grappling with this potentially deadly problem. The insurance tracker known as Insurify says rates of incidents per capita have exploded in states like North Dakota, Idaho, and Wisconsin, with Wyoming being the #1 state for street racing in 2022. Virginia and Oregon also landed in the top 10. Worse yet, Spotlight on America discovered there is only a patchwork of laws across the country that criminalize this dangerous activity. According to Insurify, just in the 10 states they examined, the penalties for street racing range from just a $20 fine to a year of jail time. The city of Tacoma, Washington took matters into its own hands this year after the police department was inundated with calls and complaints, making it an epicenter of the street racing problem in America.
They just kept going and going for hours and hours.
Sarah Rumbaugh witnessed it herself after an evening stroll.
It really hit my heart that, you know, you have no control over where you're living. This is what's happening in your neighborhood.
My colleagues.
As a Tacoma City Council member,
I asked for my council colleagues' support in adopting.
She urged her colleagues to take action, and they quickly approved a city ordinance this spring to criminalize racing attendance.
And what does that do?
It makes it illegal to be a spectator at one of these events.
So is there any evidence that it's done anything to deter street racing?
We don't have street racing anymore. It has worked.
A Spotlight on America examination of local laws shows only a handful of other places have banned spectating. In Utah, San Jose, California, and Fort Worth, Texas. As more laws get on the books, Lily Trujillo is focused on educating young people about the danger through speaking at schools and meeting with teenagers as part of her organization, Street Racing Kills.
You want to see your best friend dead right next to you, have that for the rest of your life.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Chris Daniels.
Well, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott is expected to sign a bill by the end of this month on street racing here in Baltimore City. The bill calls for a $1,000 fine and up to a year in prison if convicted. But will it be enforced? Right now, the police department is understaffed and the city state's attorney is not prosecuting certain crimes.
There's always confusion on the street about, you know, what's the actual citation that would be written in a scenario like this? Is this like a minor traffic infraction? Are those who are participating, is there some type of violation against them, even though they may not be the ones driving a car? This bill really just clarifies it, puts it in very easy text.
Well, street racing hasn't been tackled on a federal level yet. Activists say a key solution is to open more designated racing tracks so that there is a safe place to race instead of on crowded streets.
All right, a gorgeous evening. Temperature at 66 right now. It's kind of room temperature for air temperature on the Mile 1 Towson. You see just a couple of cars on the Towson traffic oval here. Winds are calm. Humidity 81%. And that dew point, it's actually the highest that it's been all day, which is still pretty low at right around 60 degrees. That's our measure of moisture in the air, and it's still nice and dry and comfortable. HD radar showing us a few showers, actually a little more than a few showers. We've got some heavy rain and some thunderstorms off the coast of the Carolinas, and a couple of those showers and thunderstorms do trail their way back into Florida. But outside of that, that's pretty much the only game in town across the entire East Coast. A couple of showers way up here into New Hampshire, but for us, it is very nice, and that goes, again, pretty much up and down the 95 corridor until you hit the Florida-Georgia state line, and that's where the rain is. That's with our actually latest weather maker that gave us all this gorgeous air. Hit highs of 82 this afternoon with this fair weather Big Blue H in control. Temperatures in the 60s to around 70 right now with that high pressure, and it will continue to be beautiful for the next several days. Notice some of that warmth, though, starting to push its way up the central portion of the Midwest and just east of the Front Range. So there is some warmer weather afoot, but not just yet. Now, it's the 6th named tropical system of the year, Fiona, now developing. You can actually see it's got winds at 50 miles an hour, makes a trail somewhere right along potentially probably near the computer models are saying Puerto Rico, and then makes a hard right. Potentially, if it doesn't fall apart, we could have some issues somewhere along the southeast coast, or it goes farther east than that and ends up somewhere out in the open Atlantic. But it's something to watch in maybe the next 5 to 10 days. So for tomorrow, just another gorgeous day. Temperature's going to be in the 70s all day long. 70 degrees here in Baltimore. Over the next hour or so, when we drop into the 50s and 60s by tomorrow morning, a look at this gorgeous day for tomorrow afternoon. Get outside, maybe hit the links as temperatures make it to the mid and upper 70s, 78 degrees. Bit cooler than that 82 we had today. 79 for Friday, 81 and dry, gorgeous on Saturday. Warms up to 84 on Sunday for the Ravens game, and could see our next chance of rain, which is not much, with the next weather maker. Very weak one Monday late into Tuesday, but highs in the mid 80s as we finish out summer.
Jonathan, thank you. The world's largest online marketplace now in some hot water. One state is filing a lawsuit as some third-party sellers say Amazon is taking their products off its website. And while the Ravens look ahead, J.K. Dobbins looks at running it back. How Dobbins took a huge step in his road to recovery. Coming up next on Sports Unlimited.
J.K. Dobbins hasn't had the chance to play in front of a packed home crowd at M&T Bank Stadium in his career. In 2020, he had COVID-19 restrictions. 2021, he missed the entire season after tearing his ACL. Could this be the week? Dobbins took a huge step in his road to recovery. Wednesday marked his first practice as a full participant, and that is great news, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to play this Sunday against the Dolphins. Same with Marcus Peters, who was running the stairs at MetLife before the game against the Jets. John Harbaugh asked if he needs to see something specific from those two guys to feel comfortable having them both play. And there are a lot of things to factor in.
Well, there's always, you don't know. I mean, you got to go by what you see. And in the end, the standard is, what's best for our team and what's best for the player, So are they ready to go? Do they think they're ready to go? Do they believe that they're ready to go? Do they want to go? That's part of the healing process, for sure. And then, then whoever the player is compared to who you have, what options you have, that becomes your next thought in there.
5 games back with 21 to play. That's how it looked for the O's entering the night. Their odds to make the playoffs are dwindling. But like they have all season long, this team will battle till the very end. A win tonight ahead of the 3-game series with the Jays would be huge. Tie game in the 4th. Luke Voigt takes Tyler Wells 426 to center, and the Nats jump out to a 2-1 lead. Top 7, same score. Gunnar Henderson with a hard hit grounder down the third base line. Both runs come in to score, but check this out. The ball slips out of Yadiel Hernandez's hand. Henderson is going to score as well. That's ruled a triple with an E7. They call that a Little League homer. O's go on to win 6-2 the final. They sweep the Nats. Coming up tonight, Miami brought the heat in 2021, blitzing the Ravens at will. How Lamar and company are approaching this Sunday's matchup with the Finns. Ahead on Sports Unlimited. We'll be right back.
Well, fans of Mr. Trash Wheel, get ready for a big festival. After a 3-year hiatus, the Trash Wheel Fan Fest is returning next week. It'll be happening at the Peabody Heights Brewery in North Baltimore. Our city has 4 trash wheels now. Mr. Trash Wheel, of course, the original, Professor Trash Wheel, Captain Trash Wheel, and the latest edition, Gwenda the Good Wheel of the West. They have collected about 2,000 tons of trash and debris. Next week's festival is for fans to celebrate the Trash Wheel family and the work they do to keep our water clean.
If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bull.
Marilyn Mosby's legal team is steaming after the second delay of her trial, why the judge says it was the only reasonable option.
When you have talented lawyers and a group of people digging into evidence, you're always going to uncover something.
A murder conviction 22 years ago is in serious doubt from prosecutors why the subject of the popular serial podcast could get a new trial. And West Baltimore residents are still struggling to trust their water, why DPW is withholding water from those skeptical of what's coming out of the tap.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Thank you for staying with us. I'm Kai Jackson. Our top story tonight on the Late Edition, City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's federal trial delayed once again. The move comes as jury selection was slated to begin tomorrow. After Mosby's defense team missed the deadline to declare expert witnesses, federal prosecutors successfully argued they didn't have enough time to find their own experts. Well, the charges surround the pandemic's impact on Mosby's travel business, which she says allowed her to withdraw money from her retirement account early without penalty. Defense attorney A. Scott Bolden is furious, saying Ms. Mosby has been living with the indictment long enough.
I've talked about the business before, and the government has amnesia about it now. So in the interest of justice, Her Honor indicated that there were going to be a continuance. There was going to be a continuance. We vehemently opposed it. We're ready to go. And lastly, let's not forget my client is innocent as she stands here.
The trial was originally scheduled for May, but earlier this spring, the defense asked for a delay. The prosecution and defense will be back in court tomorrow to try and determine a timeline. Mackenzie Frost will be following those developments. We'll have the latest on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. Marilyn Mosby's trial isn't the only court case gaining attention. The city state's attorney says she's no longer confident in the murder conviction of Adnan Syed 22 years after the original trial. Jeff Abel explains.
The state's attorney said she started a year ago taking a fresh look at the evidence in this case. And tonight, she's asking a court to throw out the conviction and set Adnan Syed free. 22 years after a jury found Adnan Syed guilty of strangling his girlfriend to death, prosecutors are now questioning the evidence that put him away for life.
The fact that they have been able to uncover 2 potential suspects, the fact that technology has aged so much that we now know that some of the cell phone data may have been unreliable, that the state relied heavily upon at trial, this is a stark contrast from the confidence that the state had in the case initially.
In a motion filed in circuit court today, the state's attorney's office asked a judge to vacate Syed's conviction, saying they've identified 2 unnamed suspects and questioned the validity of phone records used to convict Syed. They also say advanced DNA tests performed this year haven't pointed to Syed either. According to state's attorney Marilyn Mosby, the state lacks confidence in the integrity of the conviction and requests Mr. Syed be afforded a new trial.
When you have talented lawyers and a group of people digging into evidence, you're always going to uncover something. The question is whether you're going to uncover something, as in this case, that's so significant that it could warrant a new trial.
The case earned national attention when it was chronicled on the hit podcast Serial, but questions raised about the case weren't enough to gain Syed a new trial. 4 years ago, Maryland's highest court refused to grant a new trial for Syed. A year later, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected his bid, too.
Every single court that's seen his case has rejected his appeals.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute questions the timing of the motion. It was filed just hours before a jury was set to be selected in State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's federal perjury trial.
She's had 8 years to review this case, and now she finds compelling evidence after she's been booted from office and after the federal court is going forward with her trial. It's not a coincidence that Marilyn Mosby is doing something that's in her best interest.
The state's attorney insists she's not convinced that Syed is completely innocent, but says he deserves a new trial based on the new evidence found in the case. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
You trust the water from your faucet?
No, because of the corrosion in the city, the pipelines.
Well, concern lingers even after Baltimore's water supply in West Baltimore is deemed safe from E. coli, but residents still don't trust the system. In fact, many ask for more of that bottled water. But DPW stopped short of sharing the water Friday when the boil water advisory was lifted. The pallets of water we saw yesterday are now back in storage, but the fear of what comes from the tap is still very real for those in the area.
They got the water just sitting there. Why the people can't get water?
I would like for the mayor to drink this water. And if he like, he can come over and have a glass of water with me.
Well, Fox 45 took Denise Knight's challenge to the mayor, inviting him to drink water in the affected area. A spokesperson for the mayor says he won't engage in stunts or theatrics. We also received information on how to test the water supply. A certified tester says he will fill up a bottle, put it on ice, and then take it to a lab. We'll be there tomorrow when he arrives to collect a sample.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
We are learning more about a deadly double shooting tonight in the Harlem Park neighborhood. Police responded to calls for shots fired along North Calhoun Street, just a block from Augusta Fells and the Harlem Park Rec Center at about 7:30. Our cameras captured chaos as a car drove through the crime scene tape, and one woman yelled for her father. Take a look. Well, you can hear heartbreak and confusion. Our photojournalist rushed to get a better look and saw one person being restrained. You can see it there. We have learned one man was dead when first responders got there. The other victim is in serious condition. At this point, there is no description of the gunman to share. Also breaking tonight, Baltimore police did release an image of a suspect they say is involved in the assault and killing of a man in Canton in August. Police say you should call them if you recognize this person. The victim was a 60-year-old man. Police say he was assaulted in front of his house late one night and had his wallet stolen before the suspect fled. He died at the hospital 2 days later. Kai?
Mary, thank you. The verdict is in for disgraced R&B singer R. Kelly. Why his attorneys say he's the victim in these recent developments.
And we're looking good overnight into early tomorrow morning for the morning commute. Temperatures falling down into the 60s, maybe even some 50s outlying areas, but you're going to need your sunglasses to begin. I'm going to let you know how long you can keep those sunglasses out. My Weather Authority forecast.
Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, R&B singer R. Kelly has been convicted on 3 counts of child pornography. He was found guilty of coercing minors into criminal sexual activity, caught on video. Now, Kelly was acquitted on conspiracy charges that he fixed his state child pornography trial back in 2008. He's seen here at his trial in New York City, where he was previously sentenced to 30 years in prison on sex trafficking and racketeering convictions. R. Kelly's attorney says he's a victim and she's happy the case is behind him.
We're not celebrating a win entirely, but we are happy that the jury really did look at each count. And as I said in my closing arguments, each count counts. They did their job.
Well, 2 further trials are pending, one in Minnesota and another back in Kelly's home state of Illinois. Number 2, Amazon is now under legal fire from California over claims the company would penalize retailers for listing their products for lower prices on other sites. According to a report from the New York Times, Amazon would remove an option for customers to buy the products or add to carts if Amazon wasn't the lowest priced option. Prosecutors argue Amazon shouldn't have any control over price listings from third-party companies. 57% of Amazon sales come from these third-party vendors. Thousands of rail workers threaten to walk off their jobs, why they're planning a strike, and how it could impact your commute. And it's critical for first responders to stay ready in times of crisis, how one local hospital is keeping its staff ready for a patient surge. Some sad news as R&B singer Jesse Powell has died. Powell was perhaps best known for the hit song You, which peaked at number 2 on the Billboard charts in 1996. His sister shared the news of his death on social media. Jesse Powell passed away peacefully at his Los Angeles home. He was 51 years old. The Howard County School Board is hearing public comment right now for the second time regarding a redistricting plan, which has received a lot of pushback from parents.
Having a student start at the freshman year at high school and then switch to another high school can be extremely stressful for them.
Sending us 8 to 9 miles down Route 1 as an island takes your ask too far this time.
She deserves to have a safe travel to and from her school. Traffic on Route 1 is like beach traffic on Route 50 on Labor Day.
The Howard County school system is building a new high school in Jessup to help ease overcrowding. Now, speakers raised concerns about switching schools, travel distance, traffic, all of that stuff. About 2,500 high school students may have to change schools. The board will meet in a week to discuss the plan and input they've received. Violence is on the rise in the area and in many parts of the country, and first responders need to stay ready for the potential of having to see many patients at once. Olivia Dance takes us behind the scenes in Glen Burnie to show how one hospital is making sure they're prepared.
Hospital staff here at the University of Maryland, Baltimore Washington Medical Center are participating in a mock mass casualty drill. And we want to emphasize this is just a simulation with actors, and the injuries you may see are fake using makeup. Now, in this scenario, the drill is with a flatbed truck that crashed into a school bus and a car. Hospital staff start the drill by meeting an ambulance bus outside the hospital to assess the patient's injuries. Again, these patients are actors with fake injuries. Staff then triage the patients and put them into different rooms in the hospital for treatment. It's a whole team effort with a lot of moving parts. Now, these drills aren't new to hospital staff, but they provide the necessary training in the event there is a real mass casualty incident.
So we try to take every drill very seriously so that we can develop some of that muscle memory. The adrenaline will not be the same. Obviously, but we just through repetition, practice, testing our systems and our processes, it does prepare one for such an event.
After the drill is done, the work is far from over. Hospital staff then use what was learned from the drill to evaluate how they can improve or change their response for the future. Reporting in Glen Burnie, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Amtrak is canceling all long-distance trains starting tomorrow over fears of a rail workers' strike. The Northeast Corridor Acela trains won't be affected, but 2 of MARC's 3 lines would stop. Now, earlier this week, the Maryland Transit Administration alerted MARC riders saying a strike was possible starting this Friday. For some Marylanders, those lines are the only way to get to and from work. As for why they're striking, well, 2 rail unions say their crews are required to be on call at all times, and a staffing shortage is making their lives intolerable. Opponents of the strike say those problems needed to be handled at the local level.
Undoubtedly beautiful weather coming the next couple of days, including a crystal clear, dry overnight, and actually the sunshine stays for the end of the week. Temperatures in the mid and upper 70s, a little below average. We will take it. Then weekend warming on the way with probably 80s back in the forecast, so it's not going to be cool for long. And then rain chances rise, but it's going to take all the way till next week till that happens. So enjoy it while we've got it. Nice fall weather setting up. 66 right now. Beautiful lights of M&T Bank Stadium. Going to be a very active spot here. 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon for our first home game against the Dolphins. Winds out of the west-southwest at 3 miles an hour. Humidity 81%. Dew point has been in the 50s all day, now up to 60, but still, that's a pretty low measure of moisture in the air. Pretty comfortable types of temperatures coming our way, not only tonight, but again, through Thursday, through Friday, even into the early weekend before a warm-up ensues. Now, it's all courtesy of this latest weather maker with, take a look, all the rain down to our south. Those folks' peril is ours, our pleasure, I guess you could say. You can see all the heavy rain down here all the way off of the eastern Carolinas back down into Florida. That's a cold front that has moved its way east and now stalled. We are seeing the very nice, beautiful weather behind it. Fair weather high pressure setting up and giving us a nice morning commute tomorrow. Temperatures already on their way well down into the 60s. It looks like we probably have some 50s in spots overnight into early tomorrow morning. So perhaps some jackets for the kids heading out to school. That bowl of cool air, if you will, all the way from the Great Lakes dipping down into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Then there are some warmer numbers right along the front range of the Rockies. Some of that will get here by the end of the weekend into next week. Now, out in the tropics, the 6th named storm of the season forming just in the past couple of hours. It is Fiona, winds at 50 miles an hour. Kind of holds its own, staying at about 45, 50 miles an hour as eventually it makes its way, at least computer models say, and the National Hurricane Center says, somewhere right around Puerto Rico, and then makes that hard right. And then we'll have to see where it eventually goes. Some of the latest computer model tracks have kind of pushed it a little farther towards the Bahamas, and then we'd obviously have to watch it a little closer here in the United States. But that's still 5 to 10 days away at this point. So future scan overnight, saying temperatures back down into the 50s, outlying areas, 60s here in the city and up and down the 95 corridor and Eastern Shore. 7:30 a.m. Still some 50s around. You'll probably need light jackets and sweaters. And then 60s again, 95 eastbound. And then working our way into the afternoon, looking great. Back into the 70s, outdoor lunch weather, outdoor recess weather, just outdoor weather, period, coming for tomorrow and Friday. 60 moonlit skies tonight. For tomorrow, gorgeous. Hit the link. 78 mostly sunny. Stays real nice for Friday as well. 81 Saturday. It's bright and warm. Gorgeous day for the Ravens game on Sunday. Maybe a stray shower later Monday to Tuesday as we wrap up summer there on Wednesday.
New report says since COVID-19, more of us are getting back pain. I'm Liz Bonus, a simple solution, and why one woman says you shouldn't wait to get treatment. It is just ahead.
COVID may be a respiratory illness, but new reports show it's putting a lot of strain on our backs. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares the story of one woman who waited too long for relief.
Hey there, everybody. A recent report from the National Institutes of Health found almost half of us have experienced back pain since the start of COVID-19. And if you already had back pain, it likely got worse.
Just kind of raising my leg, I'd get an electric shock that kind of drop you to your knees. It was bad.
Ann Harmon says her back pain finally got so bad a few months ago, she knew she needed help.
We actually take all of that disc out,
Turned out, as neurosurgeon Dr. Yair Gozal showed me, she had a common problem.
So you can see that bone is slipping out of place.
Where one of the bones in her lower spine was slipping.
That causes compression of the nerves and can cause a lot of leg and back pain.
So in a short procedure, much like this one at Ohio's Mayfield Brain and Spine, Dr. Gozal removed those white spaces you can see here on this model in Anne's back. They're called discs.
You can see the cages that replace the discs.
He then replaced them with a cage like the one I'm holding here in my hand. It's held in place with rods and screws so the bones can grow together through the cage and stabilize her spine.
Then once that bone is solid, there's no more of that slip, and the pain obviously isn't going to come back.
And take a look at this. A few months later,
I wish I had done it sooner and not suffered as long as I did.
Anne is now pain-free. She says don't put off getting care for back pain.
It makes you appreciate the small things in life. And the fact that I could get up and ride, that is a blessing. It really was.
And by the way, she said she was also back at work 1 week after her procedure. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
The Dolphins turned up the heat in 2021. The Ravens looking to cool the Fins off this time around, hoping that Sunday's home opener brings zero problems for the offense. Finally tonight, one of Maryland's rising tennis stars is taking his winning ways from the court to the field. Tennis star Frances Tiafoe, fresh off a run to the U.S. Open semifinals, the deepest he's ever made it in a Grand Slam, was invited to the Terps football game Saturday. The team tweeted images of a special jersey in his honor, which he described as so fire. Tiafoe is a Hyattsville, Prince George's County native and also a close friend of head coach Mike Loxley. Hope he enjoys the game and hope those Terps do well. Well, that's all for us on the late edition. I'm Kai Jackson. Here's Rocco DeSangro with Sports Unlimited. Rocco.
Yeah, Kai, after shaking off some early rust and then getting into a groove, the Ravens took care of the Jets week 1. Week 2 will bring a bit more of a challenge. This Sunday, the Miami Dolphins come to town. It's a brand new coaching staff, so just one game's worth of film for the Ravens to study on the Dolphins. An offense with speed from a season ago only got faster, adding wide receiver Tyreek Hill, and a defense that smothered Lamar Jackson. Remember Cover Zero, anyone? Handing the Ravens one of their most shocking losses of 2021.
Well, we'd have been negligent if we hadn't worked on it. You know, it's something we need to get a lot better at, you know, and we studied the whole offseason, and you know, we'll have a plan for it, and hope it works.
They just, caught us off guard, really. We haven't really went over defenses doing all up zero against us, like just all up, flat out zero. But I feel we have an answer for it this year.
So believe it or not, J.K. Dobbins hasn't played in front of a packed house at M&T Bank Stadium in his career. In 2020, he had COVID-19 restrictions. 2021, he missed the entire season after tearing his ACL. Could this be the week? Dobbins took a huge step in his road to recovery Wednesday, marking his first full practice as a full participant since that injury. After all the offseason questions about the Ravens wide receivers, wondering how the group would fare without Hollywood Brown, Devin Duvernay and Rashad Bateman went out and made a statement. Duvernay, who entered the day with just 2 receiving touchdowns to his name, matched his career total Sunday in one game. Bateman absolutely toasted the Jets secondary on that 55-yard score. That's got to be satisfying, right?
I feel like we've just been doing what we've been practicing. We've all came up here and said that we're not concerned about what nobody else been saying about us. And I think it showed last weekend. Credit Duve. He played hard, had a good game. Shout out to Lamar for the bum. But, I just think we keep proving guys wrong. But I don't think we're concerned about that. We just focus on each game at a time.
O's fans brought the brooms to D.C., hoping for a clean sweep of the Nats in the Battle of the Beltways. And wins this time of the year are more important than ever. A dub tonight, ahead of the 3-game series with the Jays, would be huge. Tyler Wells on the bump for the O's. He retired 8 in a row up to this point. Riley Adams had seen enough. The solo shot to left ties it at 1. Then in the 4th, Luke Voigt at the dish. He goes yard as well. Wells went 4 innings, allowing 2 earned on 2 hits and struck out 4. Then the O's bats woke up in the 7th. 2 on for Gunnar Henderson. Have yourself a series, my man. Hard hit ball down the third baseline. 2-run score. Here comes Henderson. This is ruled a triple with an E7. We call that a Little League homer. Absolutely electric. Then on the very next pitch, Jorge Mateo provides a jolt of his own. Solo shot, his 13th of the year, and the O's sweep the Nationals 6-2, the final score.
Hopefully we can carry the momentum from here. Like we feel good. We are sitting there picking each other up in the dugout. The dugout's been really loud, showing a lot of camaraderie, team support, and I think that goes a long way. So hopefully we can continue that in Toronto and carry out a series win there.
Here's a look at the AL wildcard. Toronto, Seattle, and Tampa, 1, 2, 3. Remember, the Rays hold a tiebreaker with the O's. Baltimore, 4 games back of that final spot. Birds play the Jays 7 more times to close out the season. Game 1 of that 3-game series begins on Friday night. That's it for this edition of Sports Unlimited. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.